This is Sandy Schacht filling in for Jeff Kuhner here on the Kuhner Report. The number is 617-266-6868, 617-266-6868. Conspiracy theories range from those that could be true, but probably have a more rational explanation, to those that make you wonder if the person passing them along might be wearing a tinfoil hat when they're all alone at home. Mainstream wholesale stealing. I'm going to give you some examples of conspiracy theories. The mainstream version versus perhaps the more fringe version. Mainstream, a big conspiracy theory, is the wholesale stealing of the 2020 election. That doesn't mean it's not true, but it's labeled as a conspiracy theory. The fringe of that type of conspiracy theory is that Donald Trump you see in the White House is a double. That's not really him. So you have a mainstream conspiracy, which has, a real possibility of being true, versus a fringe version, which maybe it's true, but most likely it isn't. Another mainstream one. The government knew the COVID vaccine could harm us more than help us. Okay. The fringe version of that would be something I heard just yesterday from a caller who called in, which is that the COVID vaccine had nanobots in it that are going to be activated by AI. That's an example of a mainstream version of it versus a fringe version of it. Another one, mainstream, that we are not alone in the universe, and the U.S. government knows it. I mean, there's more than a possibility that is correct. Fringe element of that same conspiracy theory: alien corpses and flying craft are being kept at Area 51. Now, if you believe in any of the fringe versions of these, I apologize to you if you think I'm making fun of you. I'm not making fun of you. I'm just saying that there are various levels of conspiracy. Mainstream, ones that have crossed over and are now have a lot of people thinking that they're correct and, could be absolutely true. And some that are a very small group of people believe. That doesn't mean they're not true. It just means that they're not in the mainstream. Most people shrug them off. And I want to talk about conspiracies today, what you think is possible and whether you think things are a coincidence or a conspiracy, because there's a bunch right now that we have. And I want to start with one in particular that's circulating at the moment that may have started as a fringe and is now absolutely in the mainstream. And that is the 11 missing or dead scientists, all related to classified aerospace research. And the question becomes, are their fates related, or is this just a really big coincidence? I mean, have you heard of this conspiracy? Do you know about it? Because it's funny, because I talked to two people yesterday, two people who are very intelligent, educated, stay up with the news people, and neither one knew about it. They were both shocked when I told them about it. Both of them went, what, and started to look it up and were completely gobsmacked. If you are unaware of it, you might have heard Peter Doocy ask a question last week that to President Trump that might have confused you or made you scratch your head. And that is basically White House reporter Peter Doocy. First, he went to the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, and he asked her this question. Cut number 19, Mike.
There are now 10 American scientists who have either gone missing or died since mid-2024. They all reportedly had access to classified nuclear or aerospace material. Is anybody investigating this to see if these things are connected?
I've seen the report, Peter. I haven't spoken to our relevant agencies about it. I will certainly do that, and we'll get you an answer. If true, of course, that's definitely something I think this government and administration would deem worth looking into. So let me do that for you.
That was not a, no, you're silly, Peter. That was let us look into it. Now, reporting on the dead or missing scientists has ranged from the Daily Mail, which is a pretty huge paper, to online blogs, which there are many of ad infinitum. And the primary source of all of this was a podcast, not a podcast, an online blog called The Liberty Line, which started this. But then Newsweek picked it up. Newsweek looked into it and thought, and they covered what was going on it, noting that there was a new report that specifically highlighted one particular science, Michael David Hicks, who is a longtime NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. That's the acronym for that is JPL. If you see it in various articles and so forth, he was a JPL scientist, NASA scientist, involved in asteroid and comet research, and he died about 3 years ago with no public cause of death disclosed, and that was the 9th case in this list of deaths or disappearances of U.S. experts in advanced space, defense, and nuclear fields in the past, 4 years or so. And Newsweek was quick to point out, even though they did look into it, and they were scratching their head, and the number, by the way, is higher than 9 now, but at the time when they started looking at it, it was 9. They said, authorities have not established any concrete connection among the cases, and there have been no public allegations of foul play in the death, but some lawmakers have called for closer scrutiny as high-profile incidents, from a retired Air Force general's disappearance to a leading astrophysicist's killing, draw attention. So they thought it was worth looking into, and Newsweek is not a fringe element place. It's a mainstream media, form of our publication. So this is what's starting to creep out. So Peter Doocy, after asking the secretary, Caroline Leavitt, then was talking to President Trump on the White House lawn with Marine One in the background, and he actually gave the question to President Trump. Cut number 8, please, Mike.
10 missing scientists with access to classified stuff, nuclear material, aerospace. They've all gone missing or turned up dead in the last couple months. Based on what you've been briefed, what do you think is happening here, and do you think that this is connected or totally random?
Well, I hope it's random, but we're going to know in the next week and a half. I just left the meeting on that subject, so pretty serious stuff, but we're going to be hopefully, I don't know, coincidence, whatever you want to call it, but some of them were very important people, and we're going to look at it over the next short period.
So just the fact that a serious White House reporter asked the question of the president is interesting enough, but the president's response makes you sit up and take notice, because they're having meetings about this at the White House. They're talking about this at the White House. And so it makes you go, all right, exactly how many people are involved in this? And the collection of cases, the list of names, has emerged from what some people call, who want to put this into the fringe category, as mystery mongering data mining, people who are looking for trouble out there. But that being said, the fact that all these people, and now it's at 11, I think it's actually gone past 11 now, all have a connection to classified aerospace research, you have to admit that that's kind of suspicious, don't you? I mean, 11 people, 4 years, some of whom worked together, all have these very sad and odd endings. Either we don't know where they are, they've disappeared, or we basically know what happened. We know that they're dead, but there's some question about how they died, or they died in very violent circumstances. The most prominent of the missing is former or retired Air Force Major General William Neal McCassland, who this past February walked out of his home in Albuquerque for the last time, leaving his phone and his glasses behind. And nearly 2 months later, or actually it's more than that now. No, nearly 2 months into the search for him, nobody has found any sign of him, including his .38 caliber revolver, which remains unrecovered. And there's no official account of his sudden disappearance. I mean, McCassland had overseen classified aerospace research at a laboratory that UFO enthusiasts identify as the secret site of debris from the 1947 crash. And then he retired in 2013, and he worked as a consultant on media projects for the Blink-182 frontman, Tom DeLonge. He's been obsessed with UFOs and UFO theories, and he hired McCassland to look into it. So then McCassland disappears, and nobody, including his wife, knows what happened to him. And he's just one. This is Sandy Shack sitting in for Jeff Kuhner on the Kuhner Report. We're talking about the conspiracy of the 11 missing scientists. Or is it a conspiracy? Is it just a coincidence? That's the question. To join in, the number is 617-266-6868. Our text number is 70470. We have had a problem with our texts this week. We've been without them. They were down, but they are back up and working today. So if you want to text in, you can do that too, 70470. I want to know if you think that the fate of these 11 and counting scientists is just pure coincidence. And we're going to talk about it, or whether you think it's connected. And I'm going to make it the poll question. So you can join in. But I would say, listen for a little bit before you make up your mind. But the poll question, which you can take at the Kuhner Report on X, at the Kuhner Report, or at WRKO.com/Kuhner, is, do you think the fate of these missing and dead 11 aerospace scientists who are connected to top secret research, by the way, all of them, is it a coincidence? Or is it, or is their fate a part of a conspiracy? Again, you can take it at the Kuhner Report, and it is brought to you by Mario's Roofing and Siding. So, as I said before the break, the most prominent, the highest profile missing person is retired Major General McCassland, but he's not the only one whose fate is of concern here. There are 11. Or he's one of 11, but I think there's more now than 11 whose deaths or disappearances over the last 4 years have formed the basis for this theory that they're connected. And the theory holds enough water to have made it from the fringe over into mainstream visibility. There are various, I would call them, I guess, lines of inquiry regarding these missing or dead people, but it all revolves around the idea that they're connected and point to some manner of government cover-up having to do with either UFOs or nuclear secrets or rocket technology. And it's gone from, it's Newsweek has published it, Daily Mail, New York Post. There's a leading Substack newsletter that deals with it a great deal. It is no longer just on the UFO enthusiast podcast or blog anymore. In fact, at Turning Point USA last Friday, the president kind of doubled down on his intent to look into it, and it was kind of tongue in cheek what he said. Well, I'll just play the cut for you. Cut number 1, please, Mike.
As you remember, I recently directed the Secretary of War to begin releasing government files relating to UFOs and unexplained aerial phenomena. And I figured this was a good crowd because I know you people, you're really into that. I don't know if I am, but so I'm pleased to report today. I thought I'd save it for this crowd because you're a little bit out there, a little bit. That this process is well underway, and we found many very interesting documents, I must say. And the first releases will begin very, very soon, so you can go out and see if that phenomena is correct. You'll figure it out. Let me know. Let me know. But we've had a lot of questions. It's something that really captivates the mind. There's no question about it.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And it's jumped to the forefront again because of the missing and dead scientists. It's brought everything to the forefront. Are they related? Are any of the document dump that the president has promised, or one that just happened that I'll tell you about in a second, are these related to these scientists? Are they related in any way to UFOs or to maybe our research into rocket propulsion or something NASA knows that we don't? These are the questions that are swirling around all this. Meanwhile, Major General McCassland's wife is trying to downplay any conspiracy theories regarding her husband's disappearance. Although when she told the 911 dispatcher when he went missing that she had some indication that he must have planned not to be found, and which is an odd statement, don't you think? I'm not quite sure what that means. And then a week later, she issued this statement: "I would like to take this opportunity to dispel some of the misinformation circulating about Neil and his disappearance, mostly from uninformed media sources. While it was true that he had once had access to classified information, he retired 13 years ago, and it seems quite unlikely that he was taken to extract very dated secrets from him." And then she also mentioned his expertise was used by DeLong on a fiction book. And she's just saying this connection is not a reason for someone to abduct him. He does not have any special knowledge about the ET bodies and debris from the Roswell crash stored at Wright Pat. So, I mean, she sounds like she's trying very much to say, don't include him in a conspiracy theory. At this point, with absolutely no sign of him, she said, maybe the best hypothesis is that aliens beamed him up to the mothership. However, no sightings of a mothership hovering above the Sandia Mountains have been reported. So is she trying to discourage speculation because she does not believe he's part of any conspiracy issues? Or has she been told to discourage any issues regarding his disappearance? I mean, doesn't that become the question? Or that's what people who see a link between the scientists are saying, well, is she part of it? Or does she know enough? Or has she been threatened? There's all these questions like that. We haven't had our text all week, but we have it back now. 11 missing scientists, the most famous being Major General McCassland, who walked out of his house in New Mexico last February and has not been seen again. His wife says, no conspiracy here, folks, move along. But then to this story enters Congressman Eric Burleson of Missouri, who is on the House Oversight Committee. He is demanding a full federal investigation into what he called a disturbing wave of deaths and disappearances involving top U.S. scientists working on classified aerospace, defense, and unidentified anomalous phenomena. That's the UAP, for everybody who doesn't know, which is the new euphemism for a UFO. And he calls the pattern too coincidental to ignore. He went on Fox and Friends and said that his office had been tracking these cases for over a year. Cut 3, please, Mike.
My office found out about it last year. We sent a letter to the FBI about a gentleman named Matthew Sullivan, who actually we had reached out to. He was scheduled to come in for an interview. Within 2 weeks, he had suspiciously committed suicide. That report was referred to the Office of Inspector General. They deemed it credible and urgent. They then referred it to the FBI. So this is not the first that we've heard of this. That was the first that we became aware of.
Okay, that's pretty freaky, don't you think? The first to become aware of, and he committed suicide after talking to him. There was another one, by the way. A famous UFO researcher, David Wilcox, was dead from suicide 2 days after posting a video warning about how it's scary that scientists are going missing. Previously posted about how he's not suicidal. He put that right out there for, he said, basically, so that if something happens to me, he's essentially saying that, don't believe I committed suicide. Cut number 27, please, Michael.
To just start out with some business, I want to thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to be here. Every day that I have on earth is a gift and a blessing, and I'm very grateful for that because, frankly, people are disappearing. Scientists are going missing. Now they're saying they're going to investigate this. The president himself is saying they're going to look into this and see if anything's going on. It's a little bit scary. I got to say, it's a little bit scary, but you guys knew that I might still show up even though it was last minute and I've had a really rough week. That's kind of like every week, but somehow we keep on making it through all of this. Somehow we keep on grinding our way through this thing and keeping on track and having it work out. So, my God.
And he was found dead, and police say, it looks like he killed himself. But he just said, he said that he wasn't going to. It's starting to add up a little bit, or at least that's what Congressman Burleson says on Fox. Cut 3A, please, Mike.
What's really disturbing when you look back and reflect on it, you've got Monica Reza, you've got Anthony Chavez, you got Melissa Cassius, and you have Stephen Garcia, all of which, along with General McCassland, walked out of their homes, or in the case of Mrs. Reza, she disappeared on a hike without their phones. They just literally disappeared, left all of their devices at home. This is not normal. These are some of the most advanced scientists, researchers in our nation, some of the most important people for a nation's national security efforts, and they all just mysteriously disappeared.
I think he's right. It's not normal. Could it be a coincidence? Yeah, I think it could be a coincidence. But the more people you add to the list, the smaller the possibility that it is a coincidence becomes, don't you think? Is it starting to become too much for you? The congressman says it is too much for coincidence, and we need the FBI. Cut 3B, please, Mike.
This is a rattling call to pay attention to this issue and make sure that our nation's top scientists are safe and secure. This is too coincidental, and so we have to be investigating this. We need to have our nation's top investigators, the FBI, and every agency looking into this matter.
Do you think he's right? Do you think the FBI should be called in? I mean, as the list now stands, it's officially 11 high-level researchers, and there are a couple more that look like they're going to be added to it. And as the congressman said, many left behind phones, wallets, other devices when they disappeared, which is very unusual for individuals who have been working at national security, have national security roles. I mean, they don't generally leave their phones behind. One of the latest names drawing attention is Amy Escridge. She was a 34-year-old aerospace researcher from Huntsville, Alabama, and she died in 2022, in spring of 2022. And authorities had initially ruled her death as suicide by self-inflicted gunshot wound. But that case is now being re-examined. Escridge was the president of the Institute for Exotic Science, which is a company she founded specifically to create a public-facing persona for disclosing anti-gravity technology and related breakthroughs. She'd been researching advanced propulsion systems, gravity modification, and basically other topics involving UFOs and extraterrestrial life, aliens. According to the New York Post, in a 2020 interview, she explicitly warned that she had felt escalating threats and said that she needed to go public for her own safety. She says, I need to disclose, I need to publish because it's escalating. It's getting more and more aggressive. It's been going on for a number of years. Over the past year, it's getting even worse, more aggressive, more invasive. And she had told her associates that going public was safer than keeping the work private, saying if you stick your neck out in private, they'll bury you. They'll burn your house down while you're sleeping in it, and it won't even make the news because it will be thought of as just a basic house fire. Now, there's a retired British intelligence officer named Frank Milburn who partnered with Escridge to investigate the harassment she was receiving. And he gave his findings to Congress in 2023. He concluded that her death was not a suicide and alleged that she had been subjected to multiple physical and psychological attacks, including a suspected directed energy weapon that caused microwave burns. Now, I think that people go, oh, tinfoil hat time, woo. But here's the thing. We know those weapons exist because, they were used on our personnel at the Cuban embassy. And it looks like we used something very similar on Venezuela just recently. So we know that these weapons of that kind, of that ilk, exist. He's saying they were used on her. Now, her father, by the way, is a longtime NASA plasma physicist, which adds kind of another high-level scientific connection to this case. So she's one of these 11, these missing or dead people that nobody really can understand their connections. And some of them work together. Some of them are just in the same field. But it does look more and more like it's starting to stretch credulity that they're just coincidentally all worked or had connections in this same field. And a lot of them, I mean, if it were a bunch of if it were 11 people in their 80s who died, or went missing, okay, not a problem. But this really spans a range of ages. I think McCassland is one of the oldest at 68. But Erskine is 34, and there's another guy who is 29, and there are people who, it kind of is interesting to think that they just kind of dropped dead or went missing out of the blue like that, giving no indication. What do you think is going on here? Do you have any idea? Do you think that people who believe that there's a conspiracy are reaching for it? With a congressman and, of course, the president now involved, the FBI had to get involved, and they are. They're looking for any connections among these 11. There's no known evidence of any hard connections between the individual researchers other than the nature of their respective jobs and the fact that all these incidents have happened since 2022. The FBI says that it's going to coordinate its investigation with the Department of Energy, the Pentagon, state and local law enforcement, the House Oversight Committee. And NASA said in a social media point that they don't know of any, nothing related to these scientists indicates a national security threat. Is someone hunting American scientists is the question. Oh, I'm Sandy Shack sitting in for Jeff Kuhner. I forgot to say that. Is someone hunting American scientists? That is what the FBI is looking into, and the White House. 11 American aerospace scientists are dead or missing within the past 4 years. Do you think it's just a bizarre coincidence, or is something nefarious going on? Our text number is 70470. Start your text with the call letters WRKO to 70470. On the text line, 603 asks, what does the UFO general's wife thinks happened to him? The text is referencing, obviously, Major General McCaskill's wife. The general went missing, as I said, last February. He got up, walked out of the house. He took his wallet and his firearm with him, but he left behind his glasses. He left behind his phone. And this case drew a lot of attention because of who he is, not just the fact that he disappeared. And to be honest with you, Mrs. McCaskill hasn't said what she thinks happened to him. She's just downplaying a conspiracy theory. She says, no. Nope. And she doesn't believe that there's a conspiracy involved. But she has no explanation for anything else that has happened. So, is that in itself suspicious that Mrs. McCaskill doesn't know what happened but doesn't want to entertain a conspiracy theory? Are you seeing a conspiracy, or are you seeing a coincidence when you look at this? I mean, it's a very strange set of circumstances, because among the list of scientists are those who are involved in some very classified, sensitive programs that involve nuclear research, aerospace and space programs, missile defense or propulsion, fusion energy, and unidentified anomalous phenomena, otherwise known as UFO investigations. That's what's going on. And then the story exploded in 2026 because of General McCassland's disappearance out of nowhere. And that really made the press stop and look at what was going on, who else was missing. And so they bundled these things together and found out that there were NASA and JPL scientists that were gone. There were Los Alamos National Laboratory staff, not just one, more than one staff were involved. MIT Caltech researchers, aerospace engineers. And there appeared to be a pattern that has evolved here. And the question becomes, is it a pattern, or is it just we want to see a pattern? And so we're looking for one because we want to see it. So what the conspiracy theories claim, basically, is there's a bunch of theories what could have happened here. So pick one. There's a few. Foreign intelligence is targeting U.S. scientists. That's one of the theories. Two, internal U.S. government silencing or containment. They wanted to make sure these people didn't say anything. Three, cover-ups involving the UFOs or UAPs, whatever acronym you prefer, or maybe cover-up of advanced weapons research. And then there's also the coordinated assassinations disguised as accidents or disappearances. But then the question becomes, why? Why would you do this? Authorities say currently, and this is as the FBI is starting to investigate, that there are no confirmed links between the cases. They say the causes of death vary widely. And they say that several disappearances match known missing person patterns. I don't know what that means specifically. I don't really understand what that means at all. But there are some very strange things going on here. Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb has been widely quoted in the coverage of these missing scientists, and he has warned against seeing a coordinated plot. He says each case is troubling on its own, but I would caution against assigning too much significance to them altogether. He doesn't see evidence of a plan. And so, okay, Avi Loeb, who also, by the way, thinks that aliens are among us, says he doesn't see a pattern. Do you? I think that's the question. Do you think there's a pattern? Do you think people who say there isn't a pattern are part of the conspiracy? I mean, I don't want to push a conspiracy, but can we just point out that in the past, when there have been conspiracies, such as, I don't know, that Hunter Biden's laptop wasn't really Hunter Biden's laptop, and the president or the leading Democrat contender whose son it was says, no, that's just a conspiracy, and then the press glommed on, no, that's just a conspiracy, and then it turned out it was real. So just because conspiracy does not necessarily mean tinfoil hat and black helicopters. It can mean that there is a kernel of truth in something. So when somebody says, I don't see it, yeah, that's what the Washington Post told me about the laptop. So I tend to look more in depth into things now than I used to. So I'm looking into this and I'm wondering, is this a conspiracy or is this a coincidence? I haven't decided yet, and I want to know what you think about it. Do you think it's a conspiracy? Sal in Wakefield, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Sal?
Good morning, Sandy. I just started listening and wanted to make a comment. The UFO scientist, now, wouldn't all his research and data and his findings still be available, or has anything been scrubbed? All the other, I saw a little bit of this. I haven't really read into it I've just seen some of it on social media about the conspiracies, but I mean, something like that.
Which scientist are you talking about? There's a bunch of them.
Just you were talking about 5 minutes ago, the UFO scientist. I think you were just talking about.
I mean, the one who they say committed suicide?
No, I'm sorry. The one that you said got up and walked out. And didn't take his phone,
the major general. The major general. Well,
yes.
here's the thing. Well, here's the question about that. When you say all his files, one, you assume that there are files, and two, that people had access to them before he left. So there's nothing anywhere anybody says about files is the thing. When these people disappear, they're not leaving behind files. There's one exception, which I'll get to later, but he's not part of this group. And it's pretty, it's a really good question because I think it's a really rational, reasonable question to look at us and to what did they leave behind that it's making you connect these people. And this is why this is so mysterious. There are no files. That General McCassland did not leave files behind. And the young woman who is working on the gravity issues, the plasma gravity issues, there are no files left behind. So there's nothing like that that can connect them, which is why this is such a big question and why the FBI is now looking into it, because there's nothing overt. There is no evidence like files to connect them, Sal. So does that make you more suspicious or less suspicious?
What I mean is research. Any kind of research, it's got to be on computer somewhere. Any kind of research that
but it doesn't mean it's on a computer that's accessible by anybody.
Yeah, no. Well, that's my point.
Yeah,
that's my point. Is all scientists have data of their research, don't they, on computers?
I would hope to God.
If there's nothing left, and then then you would say, well, wait a minute, why is there, you can go to any kind of scientist, they're putting stuff into a computer nowadays, or their research, they're saving their research software, wherever they're saving it to. It's not all on paper. So
well, no, but a lot of these people, Sal, you're talking as if they're doing this work at home in their den and it's on their home computer. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people who worked in NASA laboratories or who worked
That's why I'm saying there should be records, is what I'm saying. There should be research on computer.
Let me finish my sentence. Okay. But the problem is these are top secret labs. These are not laboratories that are open for the New York Post or the Washington Post to go into and take a look at. These are top secret government laboratories and projects, which mean that you and I and the press and the people who are asking these questions cannot have access to them. That's part of the problem and why this has grown into this big conspiracy theory. I understand what you're saying. There have to be records somewhere. I agree with you. I think you're absolutely right. There do have to be records somewhere, but that doesn't mean that there are records that we can look at or that anybody can look at who's asking these questions. That is part of the problem. And that is one of the reasons why this conspiracy theory has exploded, is because we're not allowed to look at what they had. Does that make any sense to you, Sal?
Like I said, everybody has a higher up, even a scientist. So,
but Sal, those people who are higher up, those people who are also bound in the same secrecy thing. I mean, this is. I don't know how I hear your frustration, and it's causing me to be frustrated, which I apologize for. But and you're perfectly rational and reasonable in your questions. These are absolutely the questions that need to be asked. But here's the problem. When you have a top secret laboratory, I don't care if you're the guy who's, with the test tube or with the abacus, or obviously they don't use abacus, but with the quantum computer, or whether you're his boss. You're all bound by the same secrecy. So these are people that can go to prison if they give you access to these things. So unless the commander in chief can identify you and comes in and say, you are not being held to your non-disclosure. And even then, I don't know what the legality of that is. What's going on? You can't say anything. You're not allowed to say something just because you see a story in the paper or you see people are asking you a question. You can't say anything. You're not allowed to say anything. All we know are vaguely the types of work these people were doing. We don't know their specific projects because we're not allowed to do it because it's called national security interest, Sal. So I understand what you're saying, but at some point, you have to understand that goes on, the secrecy level, top secret, goes all the way up. It's not like you can have somebody come out and say, no, he worked on this. That person, A, goes to jail because he just basically caused a national security breach. That's why this is a problem. That's why, the national security laws are so intense. That's why this is a problem. Does any of that make sense to you?
But my point is that there has to be our government, and if that's the case, then our government could just at some point say, you know what, we're going to just get rid of this person because they're figuring out too much, or the scientists.
Well, that's what the conspiracy theorists are saying.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a problem.
Yes,
that's my point.
Yes,
that's a problem.
Absolutely, it's a problem. That is the problem. Because of that kind of environment has led to this conspiracy. The fact that we can actually go, well, wait a minute, what were they working on? I mean, if you're telling me that they're not related, then show me how they're not related, and we can't. It's national security. So absolutely, that's a problem because that kind of non-transparency, that kind of obfuscation, leads to things like this, a conspiracy theory, and we already have a trust issue, don't we, Sal? After the past, 4 or 5 years, we're like, what the bleep? Because people have lied to us all over again. And so we expect them to hide things from us now because that's what we've gotten used to in the past 4 years. And this president has been trying very hard to be transparent. So he says he's going to look into it. He says, and the FBI says we're looking into it. All the executive agencies are going to do their best to figure out what is going on, what can be told, what can't be told in regard to national security. So it looks to me like they're making an effort, but I don't know how far they can go because of the national security issue, Sal. That's why this is such a big problem. So, and that's why we can talk about, that's why this particular conspiracy moved from the fringe into mainstream. Because everybody's asking the same questions that you're asking, because those are the absolute questions you have to ask, and there are no answers to them. And that's what's driving the conspiracy theory, I think. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we agree. We agree on the same thing. I'm just saying that there has to be someone that can, there's always a boss of someone, right? So
but those bosses have the same national security handcuffs on them. They all have the same national security handcuffs on them. There is nobody who doesn't have the national security handcuffs on them. That is the problem. That is why we have this issue. So I appreciate the call, Sal. You are a logical, rational man asking the questions that need to be asked. But because there are no answers at this moment regarding them, we have this full-blown issue now where it's reached the White House press room and the FBI and U.S. Congress. What has happened to these 11 scientists? Thank you so much. Let's talk to Steve in Houston. Steve, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Steve?
Hey, good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, sir. So what do you think? Is this a coincidence or is this a conspiracy?
Common sense says it's not a conspiracy. It's something's going on. But, we got, 8 billion people now?
Yeah.
The people die. I mean, people get old and lose their mind and walk off. And, here in Texas, we've got the billboards that say Silver Alert, and I see them every day. But to be in that field, they need to look into whether or not these people were going to come forward and testify.
Some of them were.
Become a whistleblower.
Some of them were, Steve.
Then I don't think this is a coincidence.
Yeah. And by the way, just to your first point, I'll let you continue, but just to your first point regarding Silver Alert and so forth, if all of these people were, over 65, they're not. Some of them are 29, 34, 47. There's a lot of people in here. Only a few of them were older. So this is not a case. And I understand we have 8 billion people and, people die. Absolutely. But when a bunch of them in 3 years that are younger from the same laboratory die, those statistics have to be pretty alarming, don't you think?
Oh, I agree. And then, take this into consideration, too. Mm-hmm. And I also want to ask your opinion on something once I get done. Mm-hmm. But these are the same people that are telling us that, no, there's no conspiracy, it's just, coincidence. These are the same people that let Epstein slide. They said there was nothing in the emails. I don't trust them one bit. I don't trust them as far as I could throw them. And if you don't mind, it's kind of a little bit off topic, but I want to ask your opinion on this.
Okay.
So I read somewhere that only 3% of the Epstein data was released. Mm-hmm. So if 3 million emails was 3%, the other 3 million emails would be 6%. Where's the other 94%? Is that videos or pictures, or what do you think that is? And
that's a good point.
Is it even true?
Yeah, is it even true? What does that consist of? This is another conspiracy theory, Steve, that is eating at us, too, the Epstein files. Because, again, it's caused by non-transparency, just like, Sal was bringing up. Without somebody coming forward and saying, this is what you have, this is what you have, it starts to take a life of its own, so that when you do get access to stuff and it's incomplete access, all these questions, you don't trust it. I don't trust it. I hear you don't trust it. I have no idea, because how are we ever going to know? Pam Bondi, the person who was supposed to show us, isn't even in her office anymore. So I have no idea. I think that your surmise that a lot of that stuff could be video and audio, I think is probably a good bet. I think that's probably what a lot of that is, or things that aren't involved in emails, but could be so many different things. But I don't think we're ever going to know, Steve, which is why the conspiracy theories regarding the Epstein files will probably go on till the day we die and live long after us, because we will never know. It's like, how many years did it take before we understood? And we're still asking questions because they didn't release the Zapruder film, on JFK's assassination. So, lack of transparency is what leads to these conspiracy theories. Sometimes they're true, sometimes they're not. We're discovering more and more lately that they're true. And so I'm not about to say that there's no conspiracy about these scientists. I'm not about to say even, in jest that this is all coincidence, because lately we have seen too many things turn out to be true that we thought were conspiracy. So, but I agree with you. It's just too much of a statistical coincidence to have these people all in the same field, essentially, and some of them from the exact same laboratories. Thank you for the call, Steve. I appreciate it very much. Again, our text line is 70470. Start your text with the call letters WRKO, and you can join in that way. Let's see. This says, Sandy, this is just another distraction being thrown at us. This is from 508. This is just another distraction being thrown at us. Notice what the public is not talking about: demanding justice for anymore, removing the Dominion Smartmatic ballot machines before the midterms. It's been proven they can be manipulated, the billions, if not trillions, of fraud uncovered, and the politicians guilty of it. Most important, who were G. Maxwell's child diddling clients, especially the ones in D.C. Congress? We're being played again. Well, I see you're referencing Epstein again, just like Stephen Houston did. That is another conspiracy that I think we'll probably never know the answer to. And we are dealing with the Dominion. That stuff is in the news today, as is redistricting and election fraud. So that's not disappearing because of this. Just because you're interested in one conspiracy doesn't mean you're ignoring another one, by the way. So we have plenty to go around these days. But right now, this morning, I want to know if people think, and it's the poll question, it's the Kuhner Report poll question brought to you by Mario Siding and Roof, which you can take on X at the Kuhner Report or on our website, wrko.com/Kuhner. I want to know, do you think that the fate of these missing, at the moment, 11 missing or dead aerospace scientists involved in top secret projects, in the past 3 or 4 years, they've either died or gone missing. Do you think that they're somehow related? Is there some kind of national security breach going on? Or what do you think is going on? Because there are a lot of theories as to what this could be. Do you have a foreign agent targeting U.S. scientists? Is the U.S. government silencing or trying to contain scientists? What do you think could be causing? Is it involvement with UFOs or UAPs, whatever you want to call them? Missing and dead scientists. Currently, the number is at 11. I think it's actually higher than that now. Are they connected or just a statistical anomaly? You can text us at 70470. Start your text with the call letters WRKO to make sure you get through. 70470. And 860 says, could these missing scientists possibly have something to do with the Chinese nationals that came over the border and are in hiding right now? Yeah. Foreign nationals being involved is one of the issues that people are saying could connect all of them. There are a lot of issues that could connect them. One of which is they tend to work for the same laboratories, which is a little interesting. For instance, I mean, let's be clear. There's no established link between the cases other than the fact that they all work in the same area of top secret research, and in some cases, the actual same lab. So I guess to answer the question, you first have to look at, who has died, not just who is missing. And these are some of the guys. There are 5 scientists whose deaths have been described as either sudden or unexpected and are in this grouping. At least 5. There's more than that now, I think. There's a couple more been added. But one of which is Michael Hicks. He's a NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory researcher. He was 59. And he'd been there for a while. He was a scientist involved in asteroid and comet research. He died in July of 23, and there was no disclose, if you look at his obituary, of how he died. I'm sure his family may know, but we don't. Then there's Frank Mawald. He's also a NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory researcher, same lab. He died in July of 2024 in Los Angeles. Again, there's no listing of death. It's just that he passed away, is all they say. He was the principal investigator at the propulsion laboratory. He managed Earth observing and space instrumentation projects. And he was a very well known and respected scientist. Then we have Nuno. This one was very scary. This was here in Boston, actually in Brookline. This guy lived just a few streets over from me. Nuno, I think his name was pronounced Loriro. He's the MIT fusion scientist that you remember last December. He was director of MIT's Plasma Science and Fusion Center, and he was murdered. He was shot to death, by that guy who then killed people down in Rhode Island. But he was a very respected plasma physicist and had won the Presidential Early Career Award. And it was very much of a shocking case, being murdered by that guy, who also shot other people down in Rhode Island. So that was a big story. And it seemingly looked like this was not a case of, a missing guy. This guy was murdered in his house. But he's still included in this group because of the work that he did and the fact that he died unexpectedly. That's why they put him in here, even though, what's the name of the guy? Valente, I think. Remember, the name was elected the suspect in the Brown University shooting. He was later found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound 3 days after the scientist's murder. Then there's a cancer researcher, Jason Thomas. He was only 46. He worked for Novartis. He was reported missing. He disappeared from Massachusetts too in the last December, and so he's included in the group because of some of the research that he did. He was later found in a lake in Wakefield, Massachusetts. Back in March, and he was a physicist, biologist, and a biophysicist. So, and he did a lot in drug discovery and chemical biology. And authorities haven't released extensive details about how or where he died, but the fact that he was disappeared for a long month before his death made it one of those very unsettling coincidences. You've got Carl, I think it's pronounced Grillmar. He is a Caltech astronomer. He basically died in February, this past February, and he passed away suddenly. We don't know why he passed away. I'm sorry. We do know why. I'm looking at another one. We do know why he was shot too outside his rural home in California, and nobody knows why he was shot. He was studying exoplanets, stellar streams, and near-Earth objects through a NASA-affiliated program. That was him. And then there are other scientists who are missing. Stephen Garcia, he was a government contractor at the Kansas City National Security Campus in Albuquerque. Albuquerque, does that sound like maybe it's in New Mexico where the Major General was? Then there's the Major General. Anthony Chavez is a former employee at Los Alamos. He's been missing since May of last year. Melissa Casillas, she was also at the Los Alamos National Laboratory. She's been missing since June of last year. Monica Reza, she's was director of materials processing for the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Gee, have we heard that laboratory recently? She's been missing since June of last year. These are the people that are missing. And the fact that a lot of them are in the same field, and some of them are from the exact same laboratory, is what is really freaking people out here. What do you think is going on? Is this a coincidence? Can you have that many people who are not older people, who are getting ready to be dropped off at the dog track? There are not that many older people in that list who just went missing, who worked at the same laboratory. That is why there is a conspiracy theory out there. But, I have one texter who says 11 out of how many? 100 or 1,000? Never any denominators. It's not how many out of how many scientists. It's the fact that this particular cluster is of a young age from the same laboratories. Let's go to Ken in New Hampshire. Ken, what do you think? Is this a conspiracy, or is this perchance something that's connected somehow?
Sandy, I'd say both.
Okay.
Let's first start with the word conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
I think if anybody really knows what's going on each of these, there may be... I doubt anybody knows fully each of the cases. I think there may be those who know individual cases. So that being the case, it's a conspiracy. It's just the left media, if you come up with ideas putting things together, how dare you not listen to us? That's a conspiracy. So they smear. It's become a smear word when it's actually quite appropriate to use until you know what exactly happened. So let me delve into the one that's most famous. Your neighbor.
Yeah.
The MIT professor.
Yeah.
Oh, do you think that guy that killed 2 people, he just did it all on his own? No. No way.
You talking about Valenti, the guy down in Rhode Island?
Yes. You had the Keystone cops in Providence where, oh, man, their government is awful. As opposed to the Massachusetts U.S. attorney. She was wonderful and professional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, wasn't she though? I was really impressed with her. She was great.
Yeah. But did the guy kill himself? No. Come on. This is so obvious. So what's going on? Well, my theory is there were funders. There was the guide professional hitman telling this guy what he needed to do. And then there was the murderer who had a motive to take out the professor. Because we knew he was extremely jealous of the professor.
Yeah.
So you start with him, and so who are the people that are funding this? And, you can hire a hitman, and it could be multiple for all we know, but I think there's actually multiple funders. Let's just consider the world that we're looking at now. Things are changing really fast, aren't they, Sandy?
Oh,
and it's not
absolutely.
so good for our enemies, is it?
No.
When you're talking about the axis of evil, when we're talking about Russia, China, Iran now, Venezuela, they're gone. North Korea, all these parties, Cuba, there's a joke. All of these parties, and then you throw in the Soros gang who are trying to disrupt the world in Europe and the United States, everywhere. They don't like all this power that Trump is demonstrating in his administration, do they? No. And the biggest issue of what's going on is energy, isn't it? And what was the expertise of your neighbor?
Plasma,
nuclear
energy.
Power.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who think that he was at the forefront of nuclear breakthroughs. Now, that changes the whole equation, what's going on in the Middle East, doesn't it, if that actually happens? So the people in the Middle East have an interest in that professor not making advancements, don't they? So I'm not suggesting I know who, but I do have connections, a little birdie connections to the government, other issues, and we were reviewing what was happening. I was like, no. This is what the outline of what I described is what we came to a conclusion to, and that the killer was just a patsy. Now, there probably were multiple funders, so you have one funder, hey, I want the professor taken out. And the killer did too. But they said, well, wait a minute, we got somebody else we want you to take out too. And since you went to Brown University, that young woman was targeted. So she's part of this list too, it's just in a different way. She just happened to be a victim in the wrong place in the wrong time where somebody wanted her out because they don't ever want a conservative on Brown University, now do they? And she was a little bit too visible. So I say she was the first target. He was not a professional hitman. He had to spend months walking around the campus. And the guy who bugged on him was... Brown has people who live on campus year-round. Mm-hmm. So the guy that bugged on him, the killer, was simply living in the basement and crossed paths with this guy multiple times over the month or two he was casing the joint. Mm-hmm. There were so many cover-ups in that story. And, he's dead now. Let's not talk about it anymore. Oh, isn't that convenient? So, and then we have these other things that are happening, and I don't know if they're related, but... Yeah,
so Ken, hang on. So 978 says, the scientist that was murdered in Brookline knew his killer. There seemed to have been some type of warped jealousy. The other ones, I can totally see how you can make a case that they are linked, but not that one. And what you're saying is that the warped jealousy guy, was used by the people who are responsible for the rest of these to fulfill his own desires and theirs, is what you're saying.
The same type of network. I'm not saying it's one person, one group.
Yeah.
And you have nefarious characters. They know each other. And I think, actually, the Brown hit, followed by MIT, it was a message to the world. They have power. Don't mess with us.
Well, I think that I think that is an interesting perspective of it. If you think that there are multiple foreign or even not foreign or even domestic entities that are responsible, but they're all working in the same purpose. They're not cross purposes. They're all working for the same purpose, which is to eliminate these people for whatever reason. And you suspect that the reason is power, is fusion. I don't mean power, political power, but literal power, fusion power, and how it will destroy certain economies or ruin the stranglehold that some people have in certain economies. It's as good a theory as any, to be honest with you. What's going on? I mean, there is no current explanation for what's happening among these people, and there's more too. Ken, there's more. We are at 11, but there seem to be more coming down the road. There's another death that's resurfacing that seems to fit this pattern of accidental deaths involving top nuclear and aerospace scientists. There was a 29-year-old NASA engineer who specialized in nuclear propulsion, exactly what you were talking about. And he was found, he died last July, I believe, July 2025. He was found burned beyond recognition inside his charred Tesla after a single vehicle crash in Alabama. And his name was Joshua LeBlanc. He was a rising star at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, which is the heart. I know you know, but a lot of other people don't know. It's the heart of America's space and defense rocket programs. He specialized also in nuclear propulsion technology, and he was a team leader for NASA's Space Nuclear Propulsion Instrumentation and Control Program. And he also was involved in the Rocket for Agile Cislunar Operations, DRACO project, which is a nuclear thermal propulsion engine that's being designed to revolutionize travel so that we can go to Mars and further. But LeBlanc's Tesla Model 3 was found burned beyond recognition in July after veering off the road, slamming into a guardrail and some trees. And the Alabama cops said that the fire was so complete that it left little for investigators to work with. But this is one of the more, and I mean, that's bad enough, but this is one of the things that's even more troubling about this story. LeBlanc's family had reported him missing around 4 o'clock that same day because he hadn't shown up for work. He went to work very, very early and he hadn't shown up for work. Then his blue Tesla had been tracked sitting for 4 hours at the Huntsville airport. That's just minutes from his apartment before it headed out into the rural back roads. And then his last known communication was early that morning. The body inside the vehicle was so badly burned that identification had to be confirmed through forensic sciences. Now, that kind of falls into what you're talking about, doesn't it, Ken?
Entirely possible, and we can only guess. But, you're a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
How dare you not follow our media? They always tell you, no, we know they don't tell us the truth. I mean, all you have to do is do a little research. It's like, that's a lie. That's a lie. Come on, you're not going to pull our leg on that one.
Yeah.
So, that's the life we live.
Yeah, it is. It is. Thank you so much for the call, Ken. I appreciate it very much. Yeah, there's a lot of explanations about what could be happening, and I don't think anybody has the answer yet. 617 says, Sandy, has anyone given any thought that there may be a murderer among them? You know, I think you've just given me a great idea for a novel, a thriller novel, because I think that too. I would be, one of them is a psychopath and killing the others. That, I think, is a reasonable explanation, given what we've been seeing. There are a lot of reasonable explanations. And I guess what the FBI has to do now and the White House has to do now is figure out, is there a connection? What would be a reasonable connection? The FBI is looking into the, officially, 11 missing or dead aerospace fusion scientists. And that number is going up now almost every day. Authorities are revisiting previously unconnected cases. I just told you about the fusion scientist from Alabama who was found burned to death in his car. But just last week, there was another case that apparently fits the bill and could be included. And that's the case of James Tony Mafata and his family, who died in an airplane crash in South Carolina. You say, how does that have anything to do with anything, right? Well, Mafata was a decorated veteran pilot. He was an aerospace engineer, and he was a defense researcher. He was killed in the crash last week, and it's raised questions about whether this was related to the 11 scientists who were tied to nuclear and space research, as he was. Moffat was 60. He was flying with his wife, Lisa, and his sons, his grown sons, Andrew and William. It was a single-engine aircraft, and it went down in Union County around 6:30 at night. It was traveling to the airport to refuel when it crashed, and everybody on board was killed. All 4 were killed. And there's no cause of the crash yet released by the NTSB. But Moffat was part of this group of people who were in this particular field, high-security field, studying. And his son, Andrew Moffat, was also an up-and-coming researcher. He was a research engineer at the University of Alabama and Huntsville's Research and Engineering Support Center. So there's another death. Again, not on its face looking like anything other than an accident, some kind of plane crash, but we don't know because these, again, are two fusion scientists in a very small world of fusion scientists who were essentially taken out before their time. And so either by the hand of God or by what? By something else? I mean, let's look at what the possibilities are here. There is a claim that hostile nations, we were just talking about this with one of our previous callers, China, Russia, and Iran, are assassinating U.S. scientists to steal secrets or slow technological process. Now, here's the thing. Experts say foreign intelligence services do target scientists for recruitment, but nobody can really come out and say that they would be having covert assassinations on U.S. soil, that would represent a major escalation in spying. And that would certainly trigger some pretty serious counterintelligence disclosures, which we haven't seen. I'm not sure we would see them if they happened, or whether that would be something that would be behind closed doors. I don't know the answer to that. Some say that these scientists are being killed or are gone missing because of knowledge tied to secret UFO or exotic propulsion programs. And that's one of the theories that was put out by Congressman Tim Burkett. He is publicly linked at least one disappearance to alleged secret UFO programs. So Tim Burkett's on following up on that particular one. There's a theory that this is a U.S. government cover-up, that it's concealing killings to protect classified programs or to avoid public panic. And I don't know how much, we've seen our government cover up a lot of stuff. And if they're covering up to avoid panic, a UFO issue, then they've been doing it for a very long time. And why would they start killing scientists now? So the question is, do any of these theories hold water? There is no conspiracy theory involved with this that's supported by verified evidence. There are no forensic links. There's no shared timelines. There's no confirmed intelligence warnings, no arrests or indictments. But that doesn't mean that there is no connection. That means we don't know what the connection is at this point in time. Now, this brings us back to Congressman Eric Burleson, who I played some of his cuts earlier when he's talking about how this cannot be a coincidence. He says his theory of all of this is a little different from Burkett's. He thinks it's foreign adversaries. Cut number 2, please, Mike.
We know that there are programs in the past where foreign countries have used programs to try to encounter, engage, sometimes get the nation's top scientists to either stop what they're doing or come and work for that country. And so whether it was Operation Paperclip or most recently you have China that's been doing Operation Fox Hunt as well as Operation Skynet. These are disturbing, but it is true that foreign actors do engage, and our scientific community are very vulnerable targets.
Yeah, because most of the times these guys, they don't have security details. They're not out there. They just sign, do not disclose. They can't talk about what they work on, but nobody stops them from going, to the store or to the or to any place like that. Unless you watch a movie like Independence Day, where you see all these scientists locked up in the basement of a facility at Area 51 after the aliens have already arrived and bombed the planet. They're allowed out. They're not locked into a facility. So that's what Burleson is looking into. So you've got Burkett and Burleson, each with their own focus on finding out what's going on. You have the White House saying that they're doing across the board, all administrations dig in and see if you can find a connection going on. And then you have theories like the texter, who I really enjoy the theory that there's a murderer among them. I like the Agatha Christie theory myself because I'm envisioning that as a novel. But do you see a connection at all? Do any of these theories make sense to you, or do you think this is just a statistical nightmare and in fact these deaths are unrelated? Let's talk to John in Westford. John, what do you think is going on?
A lot of people, nobody's looking at, I know this is off the wall, but Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein was obsessed with physicists. He had gravity conventions or conferences at St. Thomas all the time with the countries, the world's top physicists. Steve Hawkins was there, Krauss.
Stephen
Summers.
Hawking, you mean? Yeah.
Hawking, yeah. All of them have been there. And look where he bought Zorro Ranch. I mean, it's right near between Los Alamos and some other proving ground. And there's an interview where he's talking about why he picked Zorro Ranch. That's where the scientists are. So there is a there. Have you ever heard of Eric Weinstein?
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen to him when he was first approached by Epstein when he was running a hedge fund. And Epstein was all over his thesis at Harvard, which was kind of involved a unifying theory. Like we know the quantum forces, they've been solved, strong, weak, electromagnetic, but gravity is still the mystery. I don't believe in UFOs, but I do believe that the problem of gravity has been solved, and academia has been pushed down the string theory for, 30, 40 years. And that other guy, what's his name? The guy that blew himself up outside Trump Towers, also in a Tesla. Livelsberger, I think.
I don't know. I don't remember his name.
He was trying to get the word out that we have this anti-gravitic technology. And we've kind of been gatekeeping it, the country. And if it's true, we would have 0 point energy, which would be free energy. It would destroy our economy if it ever got out.
It would destroy the world's economy. Yeah.
The world's, but especially ours. I mean, it'd help developing countries. It'd be great. You'd have free energy, but the petrodollar would be worthless.
So it's more of a globalist issue. You're saying it would destroy the globalists' power base, which is oil, and our own economy. Yeah, we're just a bank. We don't produce anything here. Well, I think we do produce some things, but I get your point. Yeah. But you're saying what this is one of the things I found really interesting about what you're saying. So you think, correct me if I'm wrong, you think Jeffrey Epstein belongs on the list, basically.
I think it just shows that there's a government involved, is heavily involved with science.
No, but you specifically were linking Epstein through the Zorro Ranch and through his interest in or gravity power and fusion and so forth. And now, of course, he's dead under suspicious circumstances, being held in a prison. So I'm saying, do you believe that Epstein belongs on the list?
Yeah, put him on the list. I mean, if you look at the trillions of dollars that are missing that Doge discovered, no line item. It's where's all this money going? I think it's research and it's hidden. I think the Department of Energy is involved. And science, nobody's looking at these scientists. They're being squelched. The string theory was a joke. They're fighting now online. How their lives have been lies, and the tech that's come out. We use directed energy weapons in Venezuela.
Yeah.
And then we have a laser from a satellite shot down 2 ballistic missiles from Iran. Not getting any play. And then the cardiac signature. We found a guy in a cave. I mean, I think it is a slow rollout of tech, and everybody's just kind of like, yeah, it's cool. My mind is blown, but nobody knows how gravity works, and I think we've known it for a long time.
Well, you and Mike, John, because Mike thinks that we were talking about AI yesterday, and Mike believes that AI is a lot more further advanced, a lot more further along than we know about because it's been because the U.S. government sits on their development of inventions. We've learned that over time, and that they've sat on AI, and that what we think where we are is way, way, way in the past, and we're much more advanced than we are. And you're essentially saying the same thing about power and about gravity power and fusion power.
Say like 50 years, 100 years. I mean, the military had GPS in 74.
Yeah. Well, it's a scary, scary thought, John. It really is. Thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it very much. And you brought something, it's really interesting, because if somebody had said to me, put Epstein on the list, I would say, what are you, nuts? But the way you presented it, when you said, when you point out his interest in fusion, he certainly had the money to indulge in interests that he had and meet people that he wanted to meet regarding any hobbies he had other than, pedophilia. So that if in fact you don't know exactly how he died and there is an issue whether he committed suicide or not, then Epstein does belong on the list. I think that's a valid addition. So before we go back to the topic, we have to do something we do every week at 8 o'clock. And we're a little bit over at the moment, but we do call log where we take one of Mike's. It's usually Mike is the decision maker here, but it's one we talk about it during the week about which calls impressed us either for good reasons or for bad reasons, or who made us laugh or made us cry or were somehow noteworthy. And Mike pulls it out, and then we offer it to you as Kuhner's call log. Go ahead, Mike.
It's time for Kuhner's Call Log, where we showcase our favorite caller from the week.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Joe, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Joe?
I'm an AI software engineer at my company. Right now I have an AI agent. He runs all night, all morning until I get to the office, and he organizes my emails, organizes my meetings, tells me what I'm going to need to focus on today to code to get myself to be the most efficient. Now that freed up about 2.5 hours of my morning. So all I need to do is 5 minutes of reading, and I'm good, and I'm off. So do I trust him? Yeah, but I obviously proofread everything that he does. I was listening to some people, they're kind of dragging their feet on the AI. And I hate to say it, but you're 2 years too late. I've seen technology. We're working on technology that's just incredible in my eyes, but in some people who aren't in this realm, who don't do it all the time, would be like, holy smokes, yikes, that's a little much. I mean, I want to say it was a year ago, where they were moving one of their models from a server to a server, and they were decomming one. And they have these testers that they test these models, and they hammer at them, and they were testing one of the old model that they were decomming. Well, they realized that this model was actually backing itself up on a redundant server because it knew it was being decommissioned. So in a sense, yes, it was technically aware that it was being decommed, so it was trying to back itself up so it could continue that conversation with that person. So yeah, that's something to definitely think about for sure.
And next week, it could be you on Kuhner's Call Log.
Please, don't be a stranger. Call again.
Yeah, that was a very disconcerting phone call. I mean, I remember when I first saw 2001: A Space Odyssey in that moment with Dave and Hal, sent a shiver up my spine, and I got the same shiver when that caller called in to say, yeah, AI tried to save itself on another server when it knew it was going to be turned off. Okay, I think life has imitated art in this particular case. Or if you believe Mike and our last caller, the government had the ability to do that way before 2001: Space Odyssey was even made. They've just been sitting on it all this time. I don't know. It could be. But we're talking about the 10 missing scientists, or 11 missing scientists. And actually, I think it's more than that now. I think by the end of the week, or by the end of next week, I should say, you'll see that number has climbed as the FBI is investigating the issue. If you want to text us, the number is 70470. Let's see. 508 says, Sandy, is there a convergence across the areas of science and research? Who benefits or has much to lose by stifling any advancement? What is the motivation? I think the last caller actually answered that one pretty well, and that is, one of the things these people have in common is power, is fusion, and so fusion power, nuclear power, studies that involve power. So I think that if in fact it's going to destroy the oil industry, the existing power industry, that would be a mighty big motivation to making sure that any discoveries in regard to fusion, anti-gravity, or the actual makings of gravity, the workings of gravity, would destroy that industry. And that would cause a global economic chaos. So it would be the globalists of some form, not necessarily China or Russia, but globalists, like deep state globalists. I think that's what he was intimating. And so that's absolutely a possibility. That would be something that I would, in answer to your question. So there was a release of documents that's kind of interesting that I wanted to share with you. It's not from one of the 11. It is, there was a senior cybersecurity official at one of the big secret nuclear laboratories who died. Natural causes, from what we know now, natural causes. And he did leave behind files after his death. But his files had nothing to do with power, with fusion. His files have to do with UFOs. And so that is another, that's one of these other theories behind the conspiracy that's out there, UFOs. And that, by its very nature, can also include power, because one of the theories regarding, the UFO conspiracies are that we know how other beings have powered their craft. They're enabled them to come here, and we've learned from that, and we're keeping that a secret for many reasons. One, we don't want to create panic about aliens being among us, and two, this source of power, as we just said, could destroy the economy of the globe if it in fact makes our current source of power redundant. So on the UFO train, in regard to the conspiracy, you have this senior cybersecurity official who at one of the big nuclear laboratories, secret work nuclear laboratories, died and left behind files that it's being claimed that reveal the U.S. government has been studying UFOs for a very long time. The documents are a collection of internal memos, scientific reports, and images that were allegedly discovered among his belongings at the Los Alamos National Laboratory. Now, if anything has anything regarding aliens, it's probably at Los Alamos. That's the lab that's located in northern New Mexico. It's about 40 miles outside of Santa Fe. And it is the primary laboratory linked to UFO studies or lore because of its proximity to New Mexico's nuclear triangle. That's where those reported sightings of green fireballs near atomic sites happened in the late 1940s. Well, after this guy's death, and nobody's releasing his name because they're concerned about his family, his son was sorting through personal effects, and he stumbled upon files labeled atmospheric anomalies. That's what these files were called. And this discovery, this guy called a journalist by the name of Jeremy Corbell, who said he was shocked by the content. He goes, it's a real scientific study at the classified level within our military of UFOs. And he decided to make a documentary about this called Sleeping Dog, which is being released next month. And he claimed the material included records of high-level government meetings, scientific studies that are linked to, yes, you guessed it, UFO propulsion systems, just what we were talking about. And he says Los Alamos was always a place where there were elements of the study of UFOs. And the documents are 100% proof that Los Alamos always took studying UFOs very seriously and put a lot of its research and efforts behind it. So this document release from this estate is now drawing renewed attention to the laboratory associated with the nuclear weapons development and deep government secrecy. That's LANL. It's a premier nuclear facility, and it's been connected to Cold War atmospheric surveillance. We're talking about the conspiracy theory that had to do with the disappearance or death of 11 scientists, that it has something to do with either fusion power discovery or perhaps alien power discoveries made by studying UFOs in Los Alamos and the LANL laboratory, the Lanham laboratory, which is a premier nuclear facility. And there have been a lot of, theories regarding retrieved technology, including unverified worker claims of alien materials stored in hidden warehouses at this facility. But reporter and documentarian Jeremy Corbell discovery began when the cybersecurity chief, who died of natural causes as far as anybody knows, his son began reviewing stored materials left behind after his dad died. And so Corbell then did this documentary, Sleeping Dog. Well, he's part of it. He's in it. It's a film done by Michael Lazowski. And he in the documentary, you see him receiving a package from the Sun, bursting with these files reportedly from this lab, the LANL lab. And the Sun told Corbell on the phone that the files included official documents from the lab that talk about meetings they had about atmospheric anomalies. And you can hear the Sun on the phone saying to Corbell, there's some information in there about Russian sightings as well, not just sightings in the United States. So Corbell says that the file has everything from original Polaroids of very studied UFO cases to internal memos and documents of when they have these meetings and they're discussing these UFOs or these incidents at very high level government meetings. So, and in the documentary, you can see photos of many photos of saucer-like craft, crop circles in fields, cylinder-shaped UFOs, and there's also a document titled "Illustrations and Photos" by somebody called the Gulf Breeze Witness, which contains dozens of witness sketches and photographic enlargements depicting unidentified flying objects seen over the coast of Florida between 1987 and 1991. And the file basically points out to us a sustained pattern of sightings, not just isolated incidents of sightings. And many witnesses in these files describe disc-shaped craft with rows of bright white lights, red and green flashing lights, and visible portholes. And some of them are estimated to be 10 to 20 feet tall and up to 120 feet wide, hovering above homes or the beach or wooded areas. And there are a number of photographs attributed to a gentleman by the name of Ed Walters that show glowing objects with overexposed white centers surrounded by red or blue greenish halos. And then you see later images that show ejected material or protrusions from the craft, and which appear to be very unusual visual characteristics. And through all these documents and these pages, you have an appendix that repeats sightings of glowing red and white yellow objects moving across the sky, sometimes leaving luminous trails or streaks. And they reinforce claims from residents that the sightings occurred a lot, very frequently, and over quite a number of years. Now, Corbell claims that some of the names listed in the documents that he received were recognizable to him as scientists that he had met during other investigations that he had done. And he also suggests that the material points to decades of government attention on unexplained aerial phenomena. And those were mostly from the Los Alamos National Laboratory located in New Mexico, where, by the way, a number of these missing scientists are from. And they played a central role in the development of the atomic bomb during World War II, and also contain, the lab also continues to support U.S. national security today and nuclear research programs today, which is why the facility has such a high level of classification, and because of the additional, theoretically additional secret research that's going on there. So there's this whole non-governmental document dump, as it were, now because of this guy dying and doing something a security chief should never do, and that is have documents at your house that if he were alive probably would get him, arrested. So the question is, do you believe any of this? Whether or not you think that the missing or dead scientists are related, do you believe there are UFOs? Does the government know about them? If we do have them, are they hiding them? These are all questions. This is another form of conspiracy theory that we don't know whether this is something that is reasonable to believe in or not reasonable to believe in. I think the government knows a lot of stuff. They don't tell us. Whether it's UFOs, I don't know. But, the interesting thing is that we've had presidents lately tease us about whether these aliens are real. For instance, President Obama recently on a podcast said that, kind of intimated that he did it tongue in cheek, but it kind of said aliens were real. Cut number 10, please, Mike.
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in, what is it?
Area 51.
Area 51. There's no underground facility, unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they hid it from the President of the United States.
So he's saying there's no alien bodies in Area 51, but he's not poo-pooing the fact that UFOs are real. I don't know. Do you believe that UFOs are real? Do you think they are? Have you ever seen a UFO? Do you know anybody in your life who has seen a UFO? This is Sandy Shack sitting in for Jeff Kuhner. Our text number, 70470. Start your text with WRKO and then send it to 70470 and we'll get it. 603 says, are you super sure there aren't any illegal aliens in Area 51? I am not, as a matter of fact. So I'm not saying there are or not, illegal or otherwise, aliens in Area 51. 781 says, Sandy, 10 scientists dead within 3 years, just a conspiracy theory? Smarten up. There's something going on here that we should be aware of, but we're not. I'm not saying they're not connected, by the way, and conspiracy theory is not a dirty phrase in as I started today saying, conspiracy theories, 10 years ago, I would have lifted an eyebrow. I don't anymore, not after we've been lied to about things such as, Russiagate and the Biden laptop, things like that. What we discovered were true have made me be more respectful of conspiracy theories. So I do not cast aspersions on anybody who thinks these are connected. I have not decided yet whether I think they're connected or not. I think the more people you put into the group, the more suspicious it becomes. And I think the numbers are a great deal higher than 11. I think we've only begun to relook at some of those scientists that have met untimely ends or have disappeared that we were not aware of. But it's interesting to me because in talking about these missing scientists or dead scientists, one of the things they all have in common is studies of propulsion systems that are either way more advanced than we've been told we were, or they come from a source outside of us, which would be, an alien source. And so it reawakens the issue of UFOs, whether you believe in UFOs, whether you believe that reawakens is the wrong term, because it's always there. It's one of the oldest conspiracy theories we have going on, that the government knows that there are aliens. They've hidden it from us to keep us from panicking. And they want to keep control of whatever discoveries they may have found in examining whatever they may have, whether it be video, whether it be whatever you got, to prove that there are that there are aliens. And it's very interesting to me, this this security analyst who had files he shouldn't have had in his home, but died normal death. Nobody thinks he's part of the missing group or dead group. But when you look upon it, he's got what appears to be proof of UFOs. So my question is, since we're talking about conspiracies today, do you think that there has been a conspiracy to keep knowledge of UFOs and aliens, not the illegal type, but the kind from, the off-world aliens, has there been a conspiracy to keep that from us for whatever reason, whether to hide their energy abilities or whether they're just to stop us from going crazy because we think that we can't handle the idea of there being aliens. So my question is, do you believe in aliens? Do you think they're here? Do you think they've been hidden from us? Do you think people who do believe in those things are crazy? Because I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty sure we're not alone in this universe. I don't know whether there was proof at Area 51, but I can't imagine that this entire universe of planets and galaxies and all the rest of it, that we're the only ones that are self-aware and thinking that there has to be life someplace else. Whether it's here or not is another question. Let's go to UFO in Brockton. UFO, welcome.
Yes, thank you for putting me on. In the Air Force, I used to part of a crew. We constantly flew EC-121H Super Constellation radar planes. And there were two things we were looking for: Russian bombers trying to get into the U.S. coastline, and also unspokenly we were looking for UFOs. And I did that for 4 years. Yes, we had an encounter. One of them was off of Wallops Island, Virginia, which is just north of Virginia Beach. We were getting civilian airliners out of that area because they wanted to test some missiles. When our pilot started screaming on the radio, document it, get pictures of it, a UFO landed on the wing of our plane in flight. And the problem was everything on the plane shut down except for the engines, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
But I never got a chance to run to the front of the plane because I was trying to help the technicians get things going. I wanted to take a glance at the UFO. Anyway, long story short, we had to put an official Air Force report in, which we did. And I was told later on, the Air Force said, oh, no, you ran into a chemical test. That was chemical. Like, yeah, really.
Yeah,
and
you would really confuse a chemical test with something landing on your wing.
Exactly. But let me mention this. South end of New Bedford, Fort Rodman, an old abandoned underground military base. Back in the 60s, probably 68, my wife and I, we stopped the car to look at the water. It's called the Cove. You can see South Dartmouth a mile and a half across the water. And we felt the air was weird outside. We don't know what it was. Anyway, long story short, we're looking across the bay to the South Dartmouth water, and we noticed a super bright light just above the water. I mean, inches above the water, doing a zigzagging pattern, and then shooting back to the shore again. And I basically, with my experience, I determined it's a damn UFO. No noise, no propulsion, no anything. Anyway, this thing was on the other shoreline. I turned to my wife and I said, it's a UFO. It's looking for something. I wonder what it's looking for. The second I said that, it shot across the bay and came right to the windshield of my car. I kid you not. I'm not crazy. I own a couple companies. I've invented products. I've got multiple college degrees. This UFO shot instantaneously a mile and a half. It was 3 feet from my window. And so we're staring at this ball light that looked like it was shooting sparklers, but it wasn't. I don't know what it was shooting. And we probably 5 minutes, we had a stare down contest. And I trying to get even though we had its attention, I was trying to get its attention, so I stuck my tongue out at it, believe it or not. Insane. But anyway, bottom line is, after about 5 minutes, it just snapped your fingers. It was instantly, I watched it go from our car to space. And we saw it like a star. We watched it and then snap your fingers again. It could have instantaneously, it could have went to San Diego from here in seconds. It was incredible. I did not tell the Air Force on that encounter because I was off duty. And, if you want to go anywhere in the military, you can't start telling them you've had UFO encounters.
Oh, no. It's funny. UFO, I want to play something for you. I'm pretty sure you've probably heard it, but this, but do you know about the story about the Tic Tac UFO from the USS Jackson, right?
Those are Navy. Those UFOs, I've come to the conclusion after almost 80 years of studying UFOs and going after them, those are controlled by the U.S. Navy. because they know what points to go
according
to
to the CIC operator from the USS Jackson, that is not true. This is him. Cut number 11, please, Mike.
I go out to the bridge wing. I'm noticing things and lights on the horizon, and like city lights or any other ships that are out there. So seeing a light that is lifting up, you can see it. I know the difference between a light on the horizon coming up and a light coming out of the water. When you've been on the water more in your life than you haven't been, you know the difference.
So he saw something coming up out of the water that moved very much like what you're talking about, UFO. I don't believe that's something that was controlled by the Navy. It seems to me that if it was controlled by the Navy, the CIC operator wouldn't be going, what the bleep? They were out there by themselves, so I'm pretty sure that he saw something that was explicable as well as you did. And as much as I give you the deference and the respect to say, I believe you when you tell me what you saw, I believe him when he tells me what he saw.
The issue I had, though, was the light was so bright. And again, 3 feet, not miles, 3 feet from my windshield.
Yeah.
That was probably controlled by somebody from someplace else. But the current ones that the Tic Tacs came from, I believe, are Navy controlled.
Well, why would you think they're Navy controlled when... so you're the only person that's seen a UFO? Nobody else is allowed to have seen a UFO?
Millions of people have seen UFOs.
Exactly. So why not give them the respect and deference when they tell you were not controlling it?
I am doing that part too. There's no doubt about it.
You know, what you said about your trip on the plane, it's so funny because a friend of mine who's a former fighter pilot told me, a very respected man, very much like you, very grounded, has no anything in his background to suggest that he would possibly make anything up, told me that on more than one occasion when they were out flying missions, they saw things they could not explain. And he also told me something interesting that maybe you know about this UFO, and that is that commercial pilots, he said, friends of his who are commercial pilots usually travel with binoculars up in the cockpit, and it's not to check for other airlines. It's to keep, he said, when you're in the back of the plane and the autopilot's on, they're looking for stuff in the sky. Do you believe that?
I totally believe that. Yeah. Again, having had close-up UFO encounters, and again, no propulsion, no source.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the reasons why they say that it might be an alien. We're talking about conspiracy theories, and the granddaddy of them all, of course, is UFOs, aliens among us, or at least aliens at Area 51. Are you a believer? That is my question for you. Let's go to Steve in New Hampshire. Steve, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
I'm good. So a couple things. Mm-hmm. We have, even just this morning, heard people who sound completely credible and sane, who are giving us accounts that you say, this person's telling the truth. I haven't seen, personally, any alien beings or alien machines, but personally, I would like to, because I'm curious. So... I can't discount people who, in my judgment, we try to judge the credibility of a source. And, I mean, my goodness, that man that told us just a few minutes ago, he saw something, and then a couple seconds later, it was 3 feet away from his windshield. That man's telling the truth. As for what it is, I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you look at the odds of there being other intelligences in the vast expanse of the universe, there are trillions and trillions of stars with planets out there. I don't know what they've got. What do you think? I just can't say no.
Oh, I am completely on the same page with you. I can't say no either. I would go even further to say I can't say no. I absolutely believe that there are other intelligent life forms out there, without a doubt. Whether they've come here or not, I don't know the answer to that. I would not dream of telling somebody that I would never tell UFO that what he saw was not a UFO. I have no idea. It could be. Maybe it's not. My friend who's a fighter pilot, he's an extremely competent down to earth, rational man. I mean, he was a freaking fighter pilot, for God's sakes. That's not an easy get. And you have to go through psychological testing in order to do it. And he has told me he has seen things that he has no other explanation for other than it was a UFO. And he knows, like friends too, that have done the same thing. So I have not experienced it myself either, but I know people who have, and I respect them a great deal, Steve. So I would say without a doubt that we're not alone. I mean, I absolutely believe that.
Disciplined, they know how to run their craft, and they're not in the business of just making things up. And how would you or I be able to dismiss the idea that there's at least one out of all those trillions of possibilities out there? But I have a question for you. Based on physics and the limitations of the speed of light, whatever they may have might more likely be machines that can withstand thousands of years of just, coasting through space in order to get here versus an actual living biological being. What do you think about that?
I think that's a very interesting premise that, we're not being visited by beings as much as we're being visited by machines, which could actually even be intelligent machines. Don't forget, we've just discovered AI ourselves. So, it could just be their version of a drone, or it could be something that's more like, and I don't mean, this is going to sound pejorative, and I don't mean it to, but it could be kind of like, a Battlestar Galactica deal when, it's a Cylon type of thing, and I don't mean that, in a negative form at all. I'm not making fun of it. I mean, it could be some kind of living machine, because we're just in the nascent, level of artificial intelligence ourselves. So it's not beyond, the realm of possibility that you have an intelligent species that has gone beyond what we've done in AI and have spacefaring AI, or form of it anyway, that's going out there and checking out the universe as opposed to spending their own people doing it. There's too much.
Good word.
I'm sorry. Which word was that?
Oh, nascent. Good word. We're on the verge of making machines that would be able to self-repair and refuel themselves for thousands of years. We're on the verge of that now.
Yeah.
So it could be. I'm just so curious, really, really curious. I'm not afraid. Are you afraid?
No, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid because I have a tendency to view the world more from the beings who are out and looking around the galaxy aren't of the War of the Worlds variety. They're not looking to, because I think if that were true, they would have found other planets that where they could harvest natural resources before coming all the way to us. Because from far as we can see, there's nobody, and we've seen or that we know of, no evidence in what we can see so far of a species that would be capable of doing that. So they would have to come from pretty far away, and I don't think they'd come all this way just to desalinate our ocean. So I think that anybody who comes here is an explorer, is looking for what we're looking for, and that is some kind of scientific communion with somebody else and knowledge, as opposed to any kind of adversarial exploration. So maybe that's naive on my part, maybe that's wishful, but that's how I view it. I think that I would be thrilled to pieces to see a UFO. I never have, but I know people who have. I'm related to people who have. I have seen my friends who I respect very much and who I know are not prone to conspiracy theories and are not prone to believing things that they cannot put a scientific basis behind, believe what they have seen. And I trust them. And I would love, like you, I would love to see it myself. And it would be just a thrill to see something or that comes from outside of our solar system. It would be an absolute thrill. So I completely agree with you. Thank you so much for the call, Steve. I appreciate it very much. Let's talk to David in Methuen. Dave, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Sandy?
I'm fine. Are you a believer in UFOs, David?
Well, let me tell you an experience I had when I was 13 years old in Los Angeles. That was a few years ago. I'd gotten a Gilbert 4.25-inch reflecting telescope that Christmas, and this was April. And I was on the fourth floor roof of a apartment building. We were on the fifth floor, which was the penthouse. And I was looking at the sky, and I looked over to what would be the east of me. And I saw these three lights. And as I looked at them, they stopped. There were two. They were white. There were two in front and one in back, forming a triangle. So I I stood there looking at, what's that? And I'm walking toward the edge of the roof, which was protected. And the bottom one started to rotate. You could see the surface move. And when it got through rotating, it was as if it were pointed in my direction, a splash of light. I go, uh-oh. So I walked back away over to the telescope. It turned back, and it went down toward the lesser. In those days, the L.A. City Hall was the tallest building. Down toward the L.A. City Hall. When it turned, there were two red flashing lights. Now, UFOs have been seen with colored lights. And so I said, and I didn't know what was going on. So I got this thing and aimed the telescope at it. It was on infinity focus, so it was perfect. When it got to what looked like they were over the City Hall, it turned again, and it became one circular bright light. And in the telescope, it was one circular light. I followed it until it disappeared before it hit the horizon out over the ocean.
Wow.
So I wrote it up.
Yeah.
And then I went in the house, and I called the L.A. Tower and the Long Beach Tower, and I said, gee, guys, can you tell me what that was? And they were talking to me, and finally one guy just said, you're the eighth call we've gotten. Oof. And he said, and I'll never forget how he put it, we've been instructed to inform you that there were 4 military helicopters flying over L.A. Listen, flying over L.A. That we had no radio contact with. And I said, oh, yeah, well, there's 2 lies, right?
Yeah.
I said, gentlemen, there was no engine noise. I couldn't hear a thing. And there weren't enough lights for 4 military helicopters flying over LA. Yeah. And he said, well, I told you what I told you. So I share this, Boston Amateur Telescope Makers, and I think it was like 82, 83.
Yeah.
I shared this at a meeting we had. We were up at the MIT Haystack Observatory. They gave the club a house, so we made a platform. We would observe from there. So we went out to eat, and I shared this with the group there. One guy started putting me down. Oh no, this is blah blah blah. Yeah. A commercial pilot piped up and said, well, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
We were flying over, and he said this, and I couldn't believe it. We were flying over the Bermuda Triangle. I'm going, this is getting really weird now, right?
Yeah.
And they said, so here we are sitting in the cockpit, and whatever it was came shooting straight down toward the ocean at an enormous speed and back up again immediately. And we're looking at each other going, what? He had no idea. I had no idea. I never said it was, aliens or what.
Yeah.
I know it was a very strange experience. So this is the first time I've publicly shared it.
Well, thank you, David. I appreciate that. But you know what that pilot sounds? It sounds like what that CIC operator from the USS Jackson was talking about, the Tic Tac UFOs. See, this is the thing, David. And what makes it so believable to me and to so many people is that the uniformity of what people saw, and I'm not talking about mass, you've heard that, it's mass hypnosis or mass hysteria, but you were by yourself in LA. You weren't, this wasn't like a group of people going, oh, look, and making suggestions to each other. And this is an individual sighting. And that's what happens with the pilots and the commercial airlines too. They're individual sightings. And they seem to be very similar, not necessarily identical, but very similar. And that, I think, has to do with one. I think there's more than one type of aircraft up there. That if it's from something beyond us, then it stands to reason that they have more than one kind of vehicle. And also, it has to do with people reporting, because the same people reporting the same incident will describe it in different ways. So I think that I think it's very believable that people are seeing things, and it's I think it's scary to some people, David, and so they don't want it to be true. So that's the people who are going to poo-poo you, don't you think?
I do, and he was, playing the science thing with me, and I wasn't saying what it was.
Yeah.
I was simply reporting what
you saw. Yeah, your observations. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what these the CIC's operators and the other operators from the USS Jackson and the other Navy ships who have had experience with this have reported. The interesting thing is they've all reported movement just like your friend, the commercial pilot, reported. The straight up and down, that's what they call the tic-tac UFOs. The ones that move, in straight lines in the ways that they should not be able to move, and at incredible speeds. And according to the Navy guys from the USS Jackson, they go underwater and above as well. So they're not, that means that their engines, whatever they're using for propulsion, does not necessarily care about oxygen, because they go underwater. But it's really interesting to me. More and more people are feeling comfortable sharing what they've seen and experienced. And like you, they don't say, I saw a UFO. They say, I saw something strange. I have no explanation for it. You can put your own explanation for it. My explanation for it is it sounds like a UFO. But that's me. I mean, it's you don't have to call it that, but I really appreciate you sharing it, David, because I wish I could view something like that, to see it myself. I really do. Because that would, it's obviously it stuck with you your whole life, what you saw. I'm sorry.
Two things. I have a girlfriend. Those little things happen to you.
Yeah. Well, maybe you have some kind of electromagnetic aura around you that
I don't get it, but
well, good.
Let me close with this though.
Yeah.
Let me quote Shakespeare. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite Shakespeare lines. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate it very much. Yeah, I completely, he wasn't claiming he saw a UFO. He's claiming he saw something he has no explanation for. Does it fit into the category of UFO? It does. It's unidentified, isn't it? So is it from outer space? I don't know. He doesn't know, but I find it suspicious that, and he does too, I guess, that the air traffic control says we've been told to tell you, which means they're passing on what they're supposed to do, but they're not so sure either. They're feeling a little uncomfortable of what they're telling people. Otherwise, they would have just said, yeah, it was helicopters. They don't know. They don't know. I don't know. David doesn't know. And, I guess that's the point. I would love to know. How about you? Do you believe there are UFOs? Have you had any experiences with them? Do you know anybody who does? Jeremy in New Hampshire, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Jeremy? Jeremy?
Hello?
Hi.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Hello. So, I'd like to throw a log on the fire, if I may.
Okay.
I can explain it if you want me to expound. I can, but what if what people are calling as UFOs or aliens isn't necessarily beings or objects from another planet, but from another dimension?
Okay.
So, as you know, we live in the three-dimensional realm, which the light spectrum that we know about, from gamma ray, X-ray, all that, there's a very small sliver of visible light that we actually see. And mathematics has proven a fourth dimension, and with this loss of dimension, we also lose perspective. So, like, if you were to picture like a two-dimensional realm, you live in length and width, but you don't know height or up. And explaining up would be very hard to do, but you could prove it by, walking in one direction for a long period of time and ending up in the same location. Kind of proves the third dimension. That's kind of how mathematics can prove a fourth dimension right now, but we don't understand it. So, seeing something from a fourth dimensional realm, well, with our three-dimensional eyes, we'll lose perspective, and you're only seeing like slivers, which is why probably people can't explain or understand everything they're looking at. But just a thought
I find that fascinating, Jeremy. I think that's a very interesting thought, and certainly just as plausible as the idea that what we're seeing is from off-world, is from someplace else. I mean, I think that the line that David just used before in regard to there are more things that are dreamt of, Horatio. I mean, the more things in the heaven and earth, Horatio, that are dreamt of in your philosophy applies to this as well. I mean, I have no proof that those are UFOs. I have no proof that they're not from a fourth dimension. And who knows if there are more dimensions than that. We just haven't gotten to the level where we can prove them yet. I think it's perfectly reasonable. Until we know for sure it isn't, then I think that it keeps all possibilities open, don't you think? I'm sorry?
Just figured I'd throw. No, yes, I agree. I just figured I'd throw out my perspective.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that's a very interesting thought, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you so much for the call, Jeremy. Let's go to Gina in Norwood. Gina, do you believe in UFOs? Have you seen one? Do you know anybody who has? Oh, sorry, we lost Gina. Okay, let's go to Bob in Saugus. Bob, welcome to WRKO.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Listen, there's two ways of looking at this. I saw a scientist one time on TV. He had pretty good credentials. And he said, are we to believe that a flying saucer comes from millions of light years away, gets a flat tire, and lands in New Mexico, the Roswell incident? Yeah, stop and think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't think, first of all, we don't know where it comes from. It could come from millions of light years away. It could come from closer to that, or it could come from, like our last caller, Jeremy suggested, it could come from here, just a different dimension. We don't know where it comes from, one. And two, accidents happen everywhere. And just because if in fact this is what's happened in New Mexico, Area 51, what makes you think it's the only one that came here? There could be many that have come here. That's just one out of thousands that had a problem and crashed for whatever reason. We don't, I think that a superior capability of space travel does not necessarily mean whoever is behind it is not prone to accidents or misfortune the way anybody else is, don't you think?
The individual, David Grouch, he went before Congress. I think it was about 3 years ago. You can get it on YouTube. You could bring it up. This guy has all kinds of credentials, top secret clearance.
Yep.
He went before Congress, and one of the female congressmen asked him, "Are there aliens? Do you have the bodies?" Basically, he says, "Yes, we have biologics." And now lying before Congress is a felony.
It is.
Yeah, so I don't think this guy's going to risk going to federal prison unless he could eventually back up his statement. And David Grouch, that's if you look it up, you'll be amazed. I'm surprised more people haven't seen this on YouTube.
I think a lot of people, Bob, have probably seen it. I think that's one of the reasons why President Trump has been pressured into releasing UFO files, the documents, which he was, and I'll mention that on the other side, because President Trump is directing the Pentagon to identify and release files related to UFOs and extraterrestrials. And this all started to surface again after President Obama hinted that they were aliens. And then President Trump put on an announcement on social media, basically saying that he was going to release. He said, "I don't know if they're real or not, but I'm going to declassify materials that people can see." And he's in the process of doing that. We don't know what's in those files yet. They could be videos. They could be biologics. They could be nothing. We don't know yet, but we're about to find out. Obama says that they are real. President Trump says he doesn't know, but is going to declassify files. And according to Christopher Mellon, who's the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Intelligence, that was during both Clinton and Bush, he says the government trove of UFO docs is massive and includes stunning photos and videos. And he said publicly disclosing the information would take UFO discourse to another level. So that is what President Trump is proposing to do. Do you believe UFOs exist, are real? Have you seen them? Do you know anybody who has? On the text line, 207 says, I see things in the sky that are red and white. They move erratically and fade in and out. I record their activities. Let's go to Dave in Salem. Dave, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
I'm good, Sandy. How are you?
I'm fine. Do you believe that UFOs are real?
Yeah. And I mean, the universe is way too vast not to believe that there's something else out there than us. But when I was out in Vegas I guess it was about 10 years ago, maybe a little longer, and that was my brother and another friend, right? Mm-hmm. And backing up my truck here, and we were up on top of a roof bar on the 51st floor of the Rio hotel. And my brother went in to get a drink. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking up in the sky, and I see this, like, red dot. And the way it moves was like, I mean, nothing moves like this. The way, it shot down, and it shot across the sky. Mm-hmm. And my buddy's like, what are you looking at? And I pointed. I'm like, check out this thing. And he looks up, and then a couple other people start looking up, and we're all watching it. My brother comes out, and he sees it. And this thing moved. It was like that guy said about, when it came to his windshield, how quickly it was.
It sounds like one of those Tic Tac UFOs that the people on the USS Jackson saw. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it shot down enough that it was like a spherical shape. Mm-hmm. That a bit. You know what I mean? That's what we could get out of it, anyways. And it was hovered for a bit, but I mean it was way up there. We could just see it was one red light and it became two as it got closer. But then it shot straight out into into space. In the blink of an eye. And it's just, I don't know what it was exactly. I just know that we all saw it, and it was nothing I've ever seen. Nothing moves like that. No helicopter, no plane.
Yeah. Did you talk about it afterwards?
Oh, yeah. We were all talking. We all agreed. Everyone said that same thing, that we thought it was, a UFO. And because, we're in Vegas, we're close enough to, the desert areas, the proving grounds and everything else. Well, I don't know. We don't know. But we, that the three of us and then the table next to us we were talking about, we all thought, yes, it seems to us that it was a UFO, although, we can't verify that. And, at the time, we might have had flip phones or had cameras, but you know what I mean?
I do.
But, didn't really get anything good on that, so, but.
Well, let me ask you, has your personal experience seeing this thing that you can't explain, that one of the plausible explanations would be a UFO, does that make you more receptive to other reports of UFOs when you hear people's stories? Yeah.
Yes, I do. And like I said, it's just the universe is so vast. I mean, we can't be alone. You know what I mean? It's I don't know how far away it comes from, or some of the people are saying whether it's a machine or another dimension. I don't know. But there's too much out there for us to be the only planet that has intelligent life on it. I believe. I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid. I mean, it is what it is. But I believe that there's just, how many billions and billions of stars and planets are out there? It can't be just us.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts.
Well, I am crazy jealous of your experience, because I would love to have an experience like that I could look at and say, oh my gosh, what was that? I think that would be amazing. Thank you so much for sharing it, Dave. I really appreciate it. Let's go to Kim in New Hampshire. Kim, do you believe in UFOs?
Well, I hadn't even thought of these stories in years until you started talking about that this morning. But my dad, he's been gone over 10 years now, but I can remember as a kid him telling a story about, I don't know if you've ever driven up to North Conway, New Hampshire, to Wakefield 16 area.
Yeah.
His story was through the Wakefield, where all those it's real hilly to drive, and he was retired military, and he had knowledge of planes and all, and I can remember him telling a story that involved that area, and the thing just all of a sudden disappeared, and then in the early 80s when I was out trick or treating with my mom, and there was something funny in the sky too, that a lot of the grown-ups around were like, "Well, that doesn't really look like something like, U.S. government." And but could I mention one other story? You're talking about the I'm drawing a blank on the term you're using, the conspiracy theories.
Mm-hmm.
Can I mention another one that I truly...
You go right ahead. Yep.
Now, the whole thing with Obama's birth certificate and all, now his grandmother had mentioned about seeing him born in a hut in like Africa or something. And then 2 weeks later, she was dead. That's always stuck with me. Wow, she was gone within 2 weeks of saying she saw him born in Africa in a hut.
Yeah, and Mike says also there seems to be a connection between people crossing the Clintons and then taking the dirt nap. So it's there are more conspiracy theories out there than you can shake a stick at. I think so, absolutely. And a conspiracy theory doesn't mean that it's not true, as we have discovered. Much to our chagrin, conspiracy theory just means that it's something that has hitherto been unexplained and has the appearance maybe of a coincidence, but is it?
Joining us now, as she always does at this time, she is the co-founder, CEO, and president of Kelly Financial Services, and yes, that is her wonderful name, Kelly. Kelly, how are you?
Good morning, Jeff. I am good. This time of year, schedules start to slow down just a bit. Families are together more, whether it's a weekend, a cookout, or just being in the same place at the same time. And those moments can be meaningful, but they can also be the moments where important things go unsaid. Things like, what are your wishes? Who makes decisions if something happens? How do you want things handled? And when those conversations don't happen, that's when confusion and stress can fall on a family at the worst possible time. That's why we put together a helpful guide called The Greatest Gift. Outline your wishes with an estate plan. It's designed to walk you through key decisions so your wishes are clearly understood. If you'd like a copy, give us a call or email us at kelly@kellyfinancial.org. Jeff, I'll continue this conversation tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Safe Money Strategies Radio. Do tune in or visit our website for the radio rewind. Jeff, have a wonderful weekend. My best to Grace and the kiddos.
Thank you, Kelly. All the best to you and everyone at Kelly Financial. To get a free copy of that guide, and I urge all of you, if you can, do get it. Call now, 888-800-1881, 888-800-1881, or you can actually email Kelly herself personally, kelly@kellyfinancial.org. That's kelly@kellyfinancial.org.
We're talking about UFOs. We're talking about conspiracies in general, but at the moment, we're deep into UFOs. Do you believe? Let's talk to Paul in Hingham. Paul, do you believe in UFOs? Have you seen any? Do you know anybody who has?
I men on CIC on ships in the middle of the ocean and tracked them. I guess I do.
Okay. Tell us about it, Paul.
I sat there one afternoon, and my job was to track international transatlantic flights, and we picked up a contact doing 2,000 knots. Pretty fast back in the 60s.
Wow.
And the OOD came in after the day, and it stopped on a dime on the scope.
Yeah.
And then after a minute or so, it took off at 3,000 knots.
Jeez. Wow.
Now, so there's a switch on radar. You can see if it's a ghost or not, and it was a solid contact. Mm-hmm. So I guess you have to say I believe in them.
Yeah, I guess and you're not the only one who witnessed this. Obviously, you had other people.
The OOD, I call the OOD, and
you want to explain to people who aren't in the military what an OD is?
I'm a carrier as a bogey.
I'm sorry, no. You want to explain what an OD is? Okay, Paul, we can't talk over each other. You need to wait till I'm finished talking before you speak. So you're at your scope. You see a bogey that's behaving like nothing you've seen before, and you call the OD. What is an OD?
The OOD, Officer of the Day. He's an
Okay.
officer on a ship.
Okay. And so you called the OOD, and what happened?
And he comes in, we look at it, and all the three of us looking at it, it stops in a dime. Boom. Just stops. So it's okay. The sweep, and it's okay. And then all of a sudden it took off the scope, and we tracked it, very quickly. And we took it, I forget now, it's been so many years, but 10-second sweeps or whatever. And it took off the scope at 3,000 knots. Now, I don't know if anything conventional did that back in the 66, but I just thought I'd pass. And the other thing I'd like to say, Sandy, is you are the second coming of Gene Burns. Thank you.
Oh, aren't you sweet? That's so kind of you to say. I knew Gene Burns. I worked with Gene Burns. He was a lovely, lovely man, and a very thoughtful man. That's a huge compliment. Thank you so much, Paul. I really appreciate that very, very much. Thank you, sir. I think this has been pretty interesting, hearing people's personal experiences, and not just a recording of a CIC operator, but in fact, somebody who did that in the 60s. The one from the USS Jackson is more recent than that, but this shows you that this has been happening for a while. It kind of defies explanation unless you look outside the normal four corners of our existence, which means we're the center of the universe. If we look outside that to either what a previous caller said, and to interdimensional issues or off-worldly issues, then they become more rational and reasonable to think that we did not, we are not the source of some of these crafts that we have seen, especially when you hear it from the lips of somebody who's seen something themselves. I wish I could see something that would qualify as a UFO. Because as another caller said, my curiosity about it is just burning. I would love to see what some of these other people see. And I believe their sincerity when they tell me what they have witnessed. And I know people, as I said before, who are psychologically sound, very rational, reasonable, professional people who have given a great deal of responsibility in this world. And they said, these are real. And I completely agree with that. So all morning we've been talking about conspiracy theories. We started with the 11 dead or missing scientists, and which emphasized possibly a global energy cabal. It also encompasses UFOs or possible containment efforts by the U.S. government, to name just a few of the possible explanations for them. And then we morphed into UFOs. Do you believe? And UFOs are a many-headed conspiracy theory. There's the basic one, do you believe they exist? Which I do. And then you have offshoots of that are out there, conspiracy theories, such as, the Roswell crash cover-up in 1947, which is, a flying saucer crash near Roswell, and the U.S. military recovered alien bodies and spacecraft and has hidden the truth from us because they don't think we can handle it. Back in the day, the Army initially issued a press release claiming it had recovered a flying disc, and then it reversed itself. And it said, no, we didn't. And people at the time were much more naive about the government and trusted the government. But as we evolved and learned that the government is not always trustworthy, i.e. Watergate and scandals that have happened since then, distrust of government has fueled renewed interest in what could have happened in 1947. And so there have been tons of books, TV specials, documentaries, I suppose is a better way to pronounce that, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, right up till today, one coming out next month, that have mainstreamed the idea of Roswell. So more and more people view it as a possibility, or maybe even a reality, as opposed to something that is far-fetched. Now, what the government has said about Roswell is that the debris that was recovered was something from Project Mogul, which was a balloon program to detect Soviet nuclear tests. And and so the question is, do you believe that? Which is more believable to you, that it was a balloon program, which is not what the Air Force said or what the Army said originally. They said, it's a disc. We don't know what it is. Then, it's a balloon. Yeah, it's a balloon. And there have also been multiple Air Force reports. You just heard a Navy report from the 90s, 94, 97, that say that there is something out there that we can't explain. So do you believe the explanation that it was a balloon, or do you think, in fact, there is something at Roswell? And besides Roswell, there's another conspiracy theory. It's Area 51, alien technology. Area 51 is supposed to house recovered alien spacecraft and performs reverse engineering on this extraterrestrial technology. And, and that's where some of these inventions that we have had in the past 30 or 40 or 50 years have come from. Now, this became viral. It went from fringe to mainstream because the government denied Area 51 even existed until 2013. And now they say, okay, yeah, there is an area. So they lied, were caught in a lie, finally came clean. There is an Area 51. But they just say now that it's not to house and reverse engineer alien things, alien artifacts. What they say it is a secret flight test area producing sightings of unfamiliar aircraft. That's what's there. And then, we've had all sorts of pop culture references like the X-Files, like Independence Day, which have embedded the idea in us that Area 51 is in fact an alien laboratory, that we are experimenting with it. So, and do you remember, there was that Facebook thing, Storm Area 51, that was like 6 years ago, which drew millions of people, turning an old conspiracy into a meme-powered movement. So I think that's breathed a lot of life into Area 51. So do you believe in Area 51? Do you think that exists? So there's a lot, I think, to basically discuss in regard to UFO conspiracy theories. And there's more of them. Those are just the two most famous ones I can think of. UFOs, Roswell, Area 51, the Navy Tic Tac UFOs from 2004. And then there is the 1997 incident, the Phoenix Lights. I don't know how many people remember that, but thousands of people in Arizona witnessed a massive silent alien spacecraft over Arizona. It was one of the largest mass UFO sightings in U.S. history, widely videotaped. Arizona's governor at the time later said it felt otherworldly. And the government, after careful study, said, no. It was military flares and aircraft flying in formation. I don't know. Aircraft flying in formation is usually not silent. And it happened. There were so many people that saw it. So I don't know whether that's true or not. Where do you fall on the side of believer or scoffer? Do you think UFOs exist? Let's go to Gene in Drake. Gene, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
I just wanted to say something.
Mm-hmm.
If you think back 100 years ago, we never thought then that we would send a man to the moon, and we have.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about what the next 100 years are going to do, we will probably be to the outer reaches of our own solar system. If you think about the positioning of our planet in the universe, there are planets that are gazillions of years older than us, and advancements in technology on those planets would be incredible. So to think that we could not be visited by aliens, you're either closed-minded or you're scared. And I think it runs to being scared, because if they have the technology to visit us, they have the technology to destroy us.
I so agree with you, Gene.
Aliens.
Yeah.
There's definitely aliens out there.
I so agree with you. And to your point about people who don't want to look at the truth, there's a story. One of my favorites, I've mentioned this before, not today, but I have mentioned this before. One of my favorite authors ever is Isaac Asimov, just a genius when it comes to science fiction writing. And he had a short story called Nightfall. I don't know if you've ever read it, but there's a civilization, and they're on a planet that has many suns. And so it's always daytime. They never see the night sky. It's just always daytime. And once every millennia, there is an eclipse of all the suns together, and night falls. It's the only time, just once every few thousand years it happens. But something else happens every few thousand years. They go crazy. their civilization has a night that they tear themselves down, they destroy themselves, and they have to start all over again from basics, and they build up again to the next 2,000 years where they're at the peak of their civilization, and they destroy themselves again. And nobody knows why. And so they're gonna, they decide to set up cameras and find out what about nightfall is so horrible that it destroys their civilization every millennia. So they set the cameras up and they discover something because they never see the night sky. So their entire existence, they believe they are the center of the universe because they don't see anything other than their own planet. And then when nightfall comes, when the eclipse happens, for the first time, they see the billions of stars in the sky, and they realize that they are not the center of the universe. They are nothing more than one of billions of possible civilizations. And their minds can't hang on to it. They can't and so they destroy themselves, and then the cycle begins again. And it sounds to me kind of like the mindset that you're talking about, Gene, in regard to these people that don't want to look at the possibility that we are not alone. And it's the same kind of mindset. What do you think?
That's the same kind of, it's fear more than anything else.
Yeah. It's fear and the realization that we're not as important as we think we are.
Right.
Basically. Yep. So thank you so much for the call, Gene. I appreciate it very much. Let's go to Kenny in Florida. Kenny, do you think that we're alone, or do you think there are, in fact, other civilizations lurking beyond our sunset?
Hey, Sandy. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I definitely believe that there are plenty of other non-human intelligence that have been here, that some are from here, that left and have come back, and some kind of use Earth probably as just an overnight hotel space and keep going. And, there's a lot of stuff we don't know. Maybe there's thousands of planets just like Earth, and maybe some are even bigger. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
One day I hope we find out, because it will, I think it'll help us all learn to get along better.
Have you ever seen anything yourself, or do you know anybody who has?
No, not me personally. I mean, I've seen stuff that looks kind of like maybe satellites flying over, at night. I understand you can see some of those sometimes, with the lights. So that's about all I've seen. I think that I don't know anybody. My brother at one time swore he saw one, but that's another story.
You don't believe him, Kenny?
Well, it was a long time ago, and him and his buddies were out drinking. So I'm not sure that
doesn't mean they didn't see. It doesn't mean they saw something that wasn't swamp gas. I mean, they could have seen something that was, in fact, that was real.
Yeah, I mean, when you do look up and something boom pops in your sight, and then boom, a second later is gone. You sometimes go, was that real or not? If it sticks around long enough, then you have, it's much more believable for sure. So, but I did want to say, that the whole documentary, The Age of Disclosure, for me was pretty big deal, because it brought a lot of different thought process together, different subject matters, showing the Tic Tac video, which was, anything coming from a military aircraft, where, they even admitted that we got the newer technology to actually see these vehicles. Mm-hmm. The one pilot admits that we have they used to say they always looked fuzzy, and that was because of the type of energy system they were using. So you couldn't see them, but they figured out a way to kind of get past that with the radars that they have on there. So I'm very happy Trump is trying to do what he can. I do think they did a good job in that film of setting it up.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sorry, we have to hold you there, Kenny, because we're coming up against the hard out of the show. But I agree with you. I think I'm very happy that they have technology to make these images clearer.